Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Zareth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. Today is a great episode because all Grand Arena matches are great because I love this mode, and even though everyone is talking about the various opinions on the new relics and whether or not they're necessary or how overpowered some of the characters are, I'm not really going to focus on that. I was actually really excited to just jump into my match, and everyone was worried and asking me about, all the relics and everything, and I don't necessarily have all the answers yet, of course. I've been paying attention, and I've seen some crazy things, but in this particular match, I was really excited to just jump in and ignore all of the relics. So you can see my opponent already put a bunch of relics on their characters, and those don't matter at all for this match because we are only focusing on trying to, beat the other player after their lock, which did not include relics. And so, diving right in here, my opponent had, according to the stats, lost a couple more than me, or at least one more than me. They had a bunch of defensive wins, so I was expecting a really stalwart defense, and I was expecting that I was probably not going to be super challenged on banners in terms of like them coming back from behind with understrength wins because they had fewer than I did. Now our mods are very similar. They had more in all respects, but I was okay with it in every regard except for their plus 20 mods, which were that they have 20 more than me, which is a lot. And finally, Darth Revan and Bastila. I'm faster on both counts, so I expected my opponent to put them on defense because if they kept them for offense, they would not really be able to counter my Darth Revan if I put them on defense. So if you look at the setup, though, you don't see Darth Revan on there. I thought maybe, the trend has kind of been to put Darth Revan in one of the back zones lately to kind of trick people and force their assumptions. And the first row though was not full of squads that I was super scared of. The Nightsisters squad was intimidating just because gear 13 on them is all really strong, and Talzin does not actually have gear 13. I thought that it was for a while, even after I won my match with them, and spoiler alert, I guess, but the Nightsisters were all gear 13 besides Talzin, and I'd never really faced this strong of a Nightsisters team before. So, and I was also going into it with Barriss, who is kind of an inferior character as opposed to C-3PO. So I wasn't really sure what to expect here. I did expect to win this one relatively easily. Maybe not without problems, but generally, I did expect to win this. So right away you can see that they are doing quite a bit of damage to me, or I guess maybe not quite yet, but they did start doing quite a bit of damage. This squad was very well modded, and obviously they had a lot of good gear, and you see the Kenobi was already stunned, Barriss was stunned. It was looking a little bit messy, like Jedi Knight Anakin a couple times and Ahsoka, they were both like a little bit close to the brink. I mean, nothing too crazy, but this is going to be a problem if I keep playing my gear 12 Padme squad. Like, the more Nightsisters get stronger, like against this team right now, gear 13, it's not necessarily a problem for gear 12 Padme to beat because it's kind of a hard counter to Nightsisters, but once you start adding all the different relic levels, I really think you're going to start losing a lot of momentum with just gear 12. And so now the push is really to get everyone to gear 13. Honestly, I mean, that's more of a push than anything at this point for me. I mean, everyone's gearing up and putting levels on their relic amplifiers, and I get that. I want to do it too, to some degree at least, but I almost think that if I buy a pack, it'll be something involving getting my guys up to gear 13, so then I can at least put the base level of the relics on them, and then I'm able to actually have a fight with some of these guys, because once you get the stats up to that point, I mean, it starts getting ridiculous. But even just getting one gear level onto your relic is really going to help mitigate some of the madness that we keep seeing. So that's kind of what my plans are for this squad. And I think that Padme and both Padme and Jedi Knight Revan are going to end up getting some love in terms of Gear 13 from me in the very near future. And here you can see I was trying to mess with the Nightsisters a little bit. I kind of think I should have just been killing zombie a little bit more, because I got 54 banners, and that's not the great start that I wanted. Really, my goal is always to get 1910 if I possibly can in terms of banners efficiency, and if I end up hitting that, like, I would need to only drop 4 banners more for my remaining 7 matches, which is a pretty steep order regardless of what my opponent has in their back zones. And so at the same time, I mean, generally the acceptable range for Padme squads fighting against Nightsisters, you just have to accept that you're going to lose all your protection on most of your characters. And so I didn't necessarily look at it in terms of like I'm going to get max banners, but 54 means that one of my characters had below max health, so that was something I could have probably avoided if I'd been a little more careful. Now this match here against Qi'ra, you guys have seen me take first order against Qi'ra squads with Nest in them a lot, and one thing, I'm kind of been in that mode of just using first order against the Qi'ra Nest squads, and I don't necessarily think that's a huge mistake or anything, but you kind of need to account for a few things if you're doing that. The squad is significantly less resilient without Nest, and one of the great things about first order against Nest is when you're fighting Nest, you can kind of engineer it so that you can get full banners over time if they take down some of your protection. But here, like, all the characters are so squishy that you don't necessarily have that reaction time. Like, Nest just lasts forever, and you can make her last even longer because she has tenacity down, and then you can do the things that reduce her turn meter, and you can't do that against these guys. Like, they just have limited hit points, and even though they're kind of resilient from Qi'ra lead and L3 and Vander and all that, once you get rid of some of those guys, like, they just go down. And so I got 59 banners here, which is a little bit hilarious to me in terms of like total banners efficiency, because Nest squads with Qi'ra are way harder to take down in general, and I always get 60 banners against that. Got 59 against these guys because I kind of just wasn't paying as much attention, and I think I probably should have just undersized that squad, to be honest, but maybe I'll do that next time. We'll see. In the meantime, I was very interested in my opponent's choice in bounty hunters, because they had some really strong bounty hunters, but they put Bossk lead, which I have not seen that for like months. And I put hyperspeed mods on Stark so that I could guarantee first turn, and even though my opponent had very fast bounty hunters, they didn't have Jango in the squad to boost their total speed. You'd need to put them in lead there anyways, but I wasn't sure. Like, it's been a really long time since I've faced a Bossk lead bounty hunters team, and so going into it, it was interesting. I noticed that, number one, IG-88 had more hit points than Boba, which I don't feel like that used to be the case, so I think you got to revamp in one of the more recent updates, like the Gear 13 protection update or whatever. And Embo also had his unique Zeta, which I'm not really accustomed to seeing Embo on this squad either, but it just took a couple extra seconds to beat the squad. I still didn't let them have a single turn, and honestly, I mean, the Trooper squad, as long as your Stark is faster, the Trooper squad is as hard a counter to bounty hunters right now as can be. Now, if your Stark is slower, that's a totally different question, and you might want to find a different squad to face them. Now, the next squad in line was Old Republic, and as you may or may not know, I've been really practicing a lot with Phoenix, trying to perfect my method against Old Republic, and that may end up changing once people start getting Wat and putting Wat in the squad instead of Juhani. Like, I don't think, I'm not sure, but Phoenix may not end up being the counter team to Phoenix or to Old Republic. I'm really not sure, but my opponent had a fairly fast Zalbar. I think that Zalbar ended up being something like a plus 110 speed, something like that. And so I wasn't really sure what the goal here was for my opponent. Typically, people don't take fast Zalbars, they take tenacious ones, and this one didn't have much tenacity on it. But I was, just going and trying to make sure that I was going to get the win. So the first thing you want to do in this matchup, like, people say that you need to take Ezra with Phoenix, and I realized that Ezra has more hitting power than any of them, and he's a little more flashy. His kit is more interesting in some ways, but I will tell you that I think that it's a mistake for you to take Ezra with Phoenix against the Old Republic team, just because all of the different things that Chopper adds to the team, and he's always the one that's like kind of the obvious, he's the trade-off character is Chopper. If you don't have Chopper, you put Ezra in, and Ezra does more damage, but Chopper's unique, where you heal a lot in the background is really great. He also just does a lot of just small things to make the squad better. And so, once I started using Chopper in the squad consistently against Old Republic, my results really, really evened out. Like, it wasn't necessarily a challenge after I figured that out and kind of the methodology to be able to beating Old Republic. But here, I don't know if you noticed a little bit earlier, but once you get enough stacks of armor shred on Zalbar, like, Chopper was doing like 25% protection damage against Zalbar on just a random shot, and Chopper is not a hard hitter. Like, Kanan almost chopped him down after he did a couple of counters. Like, it's really like the armor shred makes a world of difference against Zalbar, and really against any tank. And I'm really interested actually to see what Phoenix are going to start looking like. We'll start seeing some pretty oddball upgrades with the relic system. I want to see what relic 7 Phoenix do. I don't think I'm willing to go there yet. Like, gear 13 seems a little bit ridiculous for this squad at this point, but if they're going to be a viable counter for Old Republic, then you probably want to get to that level. So 59 banners is acceptable for Phoenix against a strong Old Republic team. They're all gear 12, and Juhani actually had her Zeta, which is not a very good Zeta in my opinion, but she still had it, and that did make the team stronger. So in the back zone, my opponent had a lot of really strong teams now. Like, all of their fluff teams were up front, other than the Nightsisters, which Nightsisters at gear 13 is not fluff by any stretch. But they also did not have Darth Revan in the back, which means that I had an excess of strong squads remaining. So my ability to use Phoenix up front consistently against Old Republic is great, because it earns me the ability to have a little bit more flexible in this squads that I'm taking. And so I had to counter a lot of strong teams, but I had 5 strong teams to counter 4 strong teams in the back. Now, one of the reasons I really wish we had a sandbox mode is so that I could practice certain matchups just like this, because I don't really have access to really, really strong Padme squads in the arena. Like, I know that some of my arena mates do, my shard mates do have really strong Padme teams, but it's hard to just ask them to, meet me at number 1 so that I can just keep hitting them, and they have to be close to my payout, or they're not gonna be allowed to move up that fast. So it's hard to test these teams, and so I see a really strong Padme team in the back, and I know that Traya will beat this squad. That's absolutely the case, but I don't know really, like, how close it's going to be sometimes. Like, should I have just used 4 members? I think that you can get away with that with the Traya team against Padme, but like, it's just hard to know if Sith Trooper, like, if as you watch the match, you see that Sith Trooper takes a lot of hits. If he's not around, then the other guys are taking hits. Will they be able to just take out the Traya guys, the Triumvirate plus Thrawn, or just even just Thrawn without Sith Trooper there? And the answer is I really don't know, but I guess it's just something to, complain about, because we don't have the we don't have the Sandmox mode that we've been asking for a while. And so, I'm definitely going to win this match here at this point. And at this point, I'm thinking, like, I wish that I had undersized, because if I don't start undersizing, I'm not going to get that final feat. And last time, if you were following along, like, that feat was the thing that got me into Kyber. Like, I barely got into Kyber, and that feat really, really helped. And so right now I'm at this point where I need to make sure that I'm getting as many points as I can. And so this could have really helped. And you see, I'm kind of messing around here, trying to finagle it so that I can get a little bit more protection up before I take out this Padme squad. And you want to make sure that you're getting as many banners as you can. So 58 banners against Padme is just fine. I wish I had gotten an understrength win, because that feat would have been nice to be worth. But I did at least get the win, and that's really the most important part of all of this. Sometimes we get so focused on what we should have done, or what we perceive we should have done at least. And I get that, but if you're paying attention to the feats, I actually decided to kind of ignore the 2 squad-specific ones that we were supposed to do this time. Looking at you have to use a clone team, which I put on defense, and a separatist team to win. I could have gotten a few extra points, but I decided that it was probably more valuable to me to actually just keep my defense set the way I was comfortable with, than trying to reinvent my defense just so I could get a few extra feat points. And that may end up biting me in the end, but I don't really regret it. Like, you want to make sure that you are getting wins. Like, getting wins is more important than anything, obviously, because if you get so many points for doing so. So moving on to this match, the General Grievous team, I've been using a squad with Jedi Revan, and the Jedi Revan squad is great. I think the secret power behind it, though, is using Bastila as lead. And really, I mean, that's I know that some people are using just Jedi Revan to beat the squad. Bastila lead is really great. I think once I get them all to gear 13, which I don't have yet, that's going to be even stronger. And then really the new thing that I've really been excited about lately is putting Hermit Yoda with the team. I got him up to gear 12 because at one point he just kind of like trivially got taken out by General Grievous with one of his AoEs, and I think maybe that was a little bit fluky, but at the same time, like, Hermit Yoda is just a tiny bit squishy. There I almost like forfeited by accident, so I'm glad that didn't happen. But so I've been using Hermit Yoda just because he also adds protection up and foresight and all kinds of awesome things. And some of that's useful against General Grievous, and some of it is less useful. But in the end, he just adds to survivability. He heals protection, which is also huge in Grand Arena, and he's just a valuable part of that team at this point. So I used to have him on defense. I still think he's a strong character on defense, but I'm excited to have him as my 5th. I think he's superior to all the other Jedi I was using. I mean, I've used Ezra there, I used Ayla there for a while. Lots of different options, but in the end, I think Hermit Yoda should probably be the 5th in here. And I know that some people are telling me, oh, well, you only need 4 guys. You could underman this. You don't have to take Jolie. But I think that was a little bit false here. I mean, you saw that Jedi Revan died. Like Savior was used up, and then Jedi Revan died another time. And this match would have gone significantly differently if he had gone away. So I think in general, if you want to be safe, then you take the full squad. If you're desperate for extra banners, then maybe you take a squad without someone. and I don't really know who. I mean, Jolie just seems so important because Jedi are so squishy. You know, if you can get gear 13 on your guys, maybe Jolie is the one to do. But as it stands, the 5-man squad is really strong. So moving on to the last 2 rounds, I had Commander Luke, and I had finally remodded the team so that, or rather the Captain Han, so that Captain Han would be the one, would not be the one who Chewie was protecting, because you always want Commander Luke to be the one that is being protected. And when I got Commander Luke up to gear 13, I failed to realize that Captain Han had been surpassed on hit points and protection combined, and so I had to remod him to make sure I had more protection on him. And so now, even at gear 12, he has more hit points than Commander Luke, which is great. Now I'll have to pay attention with relics, because relics are going to make Luke stronger as well. And we'll just have to play it by ear. I really hate the idea of putting gear 13 on Captain Han at this point, but who knows, maybe that's something that's going to happen. So this team that I'm facing is just kind of this weird, like, counter team that, I don't know, it's unique. It's got some interesting things going on. You know, with Nute, it's just one of those squads that you're trying to steal banners off of people. And you can see I took Captain Han here, and I didn't take a 5th because I wanted to make sure I got an undersized win. Captain Han heals protection, and in the end, I actually should have probably, like, done something, like used that ability on someone different. I think I misread it. I was kind of in a rush to get done with this battle, and you know, I think maybe I could have squeaked out 1 extra banner there, but in the long run, like, that ended up working just fine. Took out the squad in 1 hit, which wasn't really a question, and then I had this gear 13 Geonosian squad, and I mean, I think that I could have beat it with either Commander Luke or with Traya. I'm pretty sure my Traya squad is up to that task, at least right now, before all the relic madness happens. But I still had Darth Revan available, and Bugs are a good squad on defense. They can take away some banners and all that, but Jedi Revan just totally outmatches them and dominates them. I did a little bit of quibbling. My opponent had modded his Geonosians extremely well, and you know, obviously gear 13 is scary, and so I was going to try just a 3-man and not include HK, but in the end I am actually glad that I did that, because HK's AoE really did a huge amount of damage to them, and even though Malak had been hit a couple times, that the match was just, it went really smooth. It was never really in question whether I could beat them, and so a 1907 score is fine. It's not my very favorite. I'm always aiming, like I said, for 1910 and higher, but I have a pretty reasonably strong defense as well, and so after my opponent attacked, as you can see, they only actually failed 1 attack, and talking to them via chat, they said that the squad I got a defensive win with got extremely lucky, and I didn't actually ask them what squad they used to counter them. But that is one good thing about Emperor Palpatine squads. It's like, if you have decent RNG, then you can kind of steal wins every once in a while, and I don't doubt that my opponent probably should have won that match, but the fact is that the reason they're in front is to make sure that people use kind of a lesser squad to try to counter them. And Emperor Palpatine, and you know, if he gets his turn meter train rolling, like, you can really just steamroll stronger teams every once in a while. It doesn't happen often, but it's something to really, you know, kind of pay attention to. I think that Palpatine is an okay team on offense, but you don't earn max banners usually, and so putting him on defense, it's just, I don't know. That's what I'm doing right now, and maybe eventually I'll start putting him on offense. But on the other hand, I don't really see any need to at this point. As it stands, I still had my Jedi Training Rey team available, and I even had my Ewoks available for attack, which, I mean, they're not going to do much, but they can counter a few things. And in the end, even if my opponent had beat my Emperor Palpatine squad like they probably should, like they got unlucky against, they would have been at 1877 banners, which would have put me at 30 over them anyway. So my defense clearly did its job in terms of efficiency, though I will say I didn't watch their attacks, and so maybe that attack on Palpatine failing was kind of the catalyst in things going wrong. Like if people only have 8 strong teams on offense, if they were forced to use one of those stronger teams on Palpatine, then that kind of throws everything off, and you're going to be using less strong squads than you're kind of prepared to do. So I don't really know. I'll have to ask my opponent what all went on with their decision making and what happened. I don't want to presume anything, of course, but anyways, this was a strong start to this championship round, and hopefully my next opponent, who is actually surprisingly equal to me on mods and gear, like we're as close as you're gonna get probably, that's my next round, the semifinals. So stay tuned for that, and thank you guys so much for watching, and remember that in all things Zareth prevails.